Today we chat with retired Phycological Operations operator Ryan Branford. Ryan talks about his struggles with PTS and the impact on his life and the impact on his friends and family. He also shares the success he has had since addressing his issues head on. All right, man, I appreciate you being here today.
No, thanks for having me.
Taking the time to talk. I'm just going to open it up to you, man. Just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, it's easy, man. My name is Ryan Branford. Retired Sergeant First Class, 22 years, 7 months and some days. Came in 96 originally. My first MOS was 91 Romeo. Doesn't exist anymore. Reclassed something else, but I was a food inspector. Don't knock it. I was stationed in Puerto Rico for 4 years, okay, on a Navy base. So it was pretty sweet. But being a young, dumb private in Puerto Rico on a Navy base with like 8 Army guys was a recipe for disaster.
I can imagine.
Got out in 2000. Thought I was done. Did some landscaping again after the Army. 9/11 happened. Then December after 9/11, I joined the reserves. Recruiter said something about PSYOP. Sounded cool. I was like, I'll go do that. So fast forward, deployed in 03. And when I came back, I figured if I'm going to keep deploying, I might as well come back on active duty, get full benefits and everything. Came back on active duty in January of 04 and been a Bragg ever since. Retired about a year and a half. It'll be 2 years in July, this July. Deployed in 03, 05, 06, 07, 08. And then after 08, I took a meaningless assignment at USASOC for 3 years. And my body started breaking down, surgeries. Didn't deploy for a long time. I deployed the last time in November 17 to Iraq again, which is kind of crazy being back 10 years later with the embassy being completed and everything. It was just strange. Married for 26, it'll be 26 years this year in August. 3 kids, all grown, thankfully, even though 2 of them are still at home, but I don't have to take care of them as much as I used to. But retired now. Happiest I've been in a long time. I'm a service advisor at a Harley dealership, and just kind of living life to the best I can right now. Still trying to figure out who I am, but doing okay for the most part.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, trying to figure out what I want to be when I become an adult, right?
Man, I'm still trying to figure that out.
Did you do all your deployments to Iraq, or did you go other places?
No, all my combat deployments, well, I guess technically all of them were combat at the time, but Iraq, briefly to Qatar for a month, but never made it to Afghanistan. Had an opportunity to go to Afghanistan after I got back in 17, but it was my son's senior year, and I didn't want to miss that. Of course, in hindsight, it was the COVID year, so I still probably could have gone and wouldn't have missed anything of his high school because he was taking all his classes laying on his bed on his phone. So, no, everything was mostly Iraq.
Okay. Curious, how'd you hear about the podcast and why'd you decide to come on?
Actually, mutual therapist, which we didn't know we had at the time, but she brought it up to me, called me up, said, hey, there's this soon-to-be retired guy that's starting a podcast talking about PTS. She thought I'd be great to come on and just share my story. And I've kind of wanted to do something like this for a while anyways, and opportunity presented itself. Your story sounded a lot like my story when we talked on the phone, and here I am.
Very cool. Take me back. When did you start to first realize that you had PTS or some of your symptoms and anxieties?
So I will say things definitely started changing after 03, after the invasion. But I didn't really... So even when I was diagnosed with PTS, it still probably took me about 2 years to accept that I had it. I knew there was things going on. I knew there was stuff wrong. I was drinking way too much. I was never an alcoholic, but I definitely never needed to drink. But when I did drink, I binged like crazy. But I knew there was issues. Everything would set me off. I was just a prick, for lack of a better term, for a lot of years.
When you say everything set you off, can you talk about that?
I mean, anything. I can't even give a specific example because literally just any stupid little thing that should be trivial would just set me off. I mean, it was actually kind of the running joke everywhere I worked in group and everything that Branford was just the angry guy. Everything would set me off. I always like to look at it that I just always complained about, I don't want to use the other word, about everything that everybody else was thinking about. And I'd get very passionate about it a lot of times. But just looking back, I mean, I had all the signs and the symptoms for a long time. And I had a hard time accepting the diagnosis, not really because I kind of, like I said, I knew I had it. I didn't think I deserved the diagnosis. And I know that may sound crazy to some people, but because while I did see some things on deployment, I didn't think I saw enough. I didn't think I did enough to deserve that label. I knew a lot of guys, and truth be told, knowing what I know now, maybe they're not doing as good as they appeared to be. But I knew guys that did a lot more than I did and appeared to be fine. Of course, we know we're pretty good at faking it in the military.
Yeah.
That was the hardest part for me, is accepting that I deserved it, I guess.
Yeah. Why do you think, I mean, I know you explained it where I didn't feel like I deserved it, but
I didn't think, I wasn't engaged in any heavy combat. I shot at a couple times, returned fire a couple times, but nothing crazy. I wasn't kicking doors in or anything like that.
Yeah, but I think there's also something where it's like just being in that environment, just being over there where, I'm going to a war zone and someone is actively trying to kill me every day of my life.
100%. Like, I've accepted that now. But even like just a couple of years ago, when I first got the diagnosis, even that year and a half I was in therapy for weekly, it probably wasn't until I was actually retired where I finally accepted, having that label. And it's not a bad thing. For me personally, I never thought I did enough. And you look back, laying in bed and the mortars are coming in, there's nothing you can do about it. You're just laying there waiting. Is this the moment? I mean, I remember making a phone call to my wife in 06 when I was at the embassy. Mortars were walking in. It kept getting closer and closer. I legit thought that was it. I called my wife, had my body armor in bed with the mattress over top of me, just laying there. I thought it was over. But like I said, it was mainly from the fact that I had no direct combat and, not kicking in doors, nothing like that. The worst, getting shot at in the Chinook and stuff like that, nothing crazy. But I've accepted that fact now.
Nothing crazy. So when you compare that, though, to like other people's experiences just in life, like everything you just talked about is very crazy.
But see, and being in the military yourself for 20 plus years, I'm sure you've probably done a lot more stuff than me, or know people that have done. For me, for a guy, one of the things I wanted to do the most, I always wanted to be a first sergeant. That wasn't in the cards because I got hurt, couldn't become a jump master, had to terminate jump status and everything. So I didn't even get to do a lot of things in my career I always wanted to do. And I still have a hard time accepting all that. And even saying it now, talking about mortars coming in, taking small arms fire in the Chinook and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, that's not normal.
No.
It's not normal at all. And saying it right now, I kind of feel like an idiot thinking this before. But I think it's more to do with, losing buddies downrange and knowing the things that they went through, and the guys that did make it back that were with them when that stuff happened, they obviously had it a lot worse than I did. And that's why I always just had I don't know if it's survivor's guilt or whatever, just not thinking I deserved to be as broken as I was.
Well, and naturally we all compare ourselves and our stories to the other guys.
Absolutely.
So it's always that, you got an award and I got an award, but who did more to get that award? So it's always, and unfortunately, then we compare that to like behavioral health, PTS and everything. And it's like, do I deserve to have this? And I think a lot of guys struggle like you did, where I know I have it, but I don't feel like I deserve it, so I'm not going to acknowledge it.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on when guys have it and just refuse, like they know it, and they just refuse to get help?
It's tough, dude, because even though like the stigma has been lifted so much, it's still there. I don't care what anybody says. It's still there. Now, if you're like I was, a lot of my assignments, I never really had to deal with toxic leadership, mostly in my career. I mean, you hear stories about, I mean, you see the stuff that comes across WTF moments and stuff, and the stuff that's happening. You know, I mean, dudes on profile being made to go to NTC on crutches and stuff like that. You know, I mean, that wears on a dude's head. And people, we're so, I don't want to use brainwash, that's not the right word for it, but you just get into such muscle memory over the course of 20 plus years of getting the job done, doing what needs to be done, pushing your feelings to the backside to take care of everybody else around you, the family, the unit, you know, your soldiers and all that stuff. You don't have time for yourself. Mm-hmm. But it's so important to make time for yourself and to recognize these things that are going on in your life. Because I know there's a lot more dudes that are messed up that aren't getting help.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a pride thing or they're just so used to bottling it up. Because I'll be honest, I mean, therapy sucks. Like, it's good, but it sucks. Like, if you actually, it's like going to physical therapy. If you go to physical therapy and actually do what you're supposed to do to get better after surgery, it hurts. It doesn't feel good all the time, but you got to do it to get back to where you need to be. Same thing with your mental health. It absolutely sucked. I purposely scheduled my appointments at 2 or 3 o'clock. I told my first sergeant, dude, I'm not just, I'm not coming back after therapy. I'm gone for the day. He totally understood because I was emotionally wrecked every session I came out of there, every time, for a year and a half straight.
So I got you beat.
I did 2 years?
Yeah. She told me at the end, she's like, "You're my longest running patient." I think my other one was a year and a half.
Yep.
You brought up therapy. What can you talk about some of the treatments that you went through?
So, and I know I'm not an expert. I'm not going to know any scientific terms or anything that Tracy used when we were in there. The biggest thing, so I've done a couple things. I mean, the biggest thing was that year and a half with her. I really can't remember what it was called. Basically, she would do stuff where she had me close my eyes, with the lights down and everything, and talk about stuff. Of course, that set me off into a panic attack as soon as I started talking about stuff. Mm-hmm. I've done the Alpha Stim, which I actually need to get back into the VA because I haven't been using it, and that thing actually works really well for me.
Expand on that. Talk about the Alpha Stim.
The Alpha Stim. So, like I said, I apologize, people. I am not an expert on all this, but basically, and if I'm incorrect, y'all leave it in the comments if there's comments or something, man. Basically, what it is there's these 2 electrodes that connect up to your ears, and you put on like a connecting jelly or something like that, and it basically sends electrical impulses through your earlobes. And I guess it reacts to the same receptors that pain medications do, like narcotics and stuff like that. So I haven't been using it. It's sitting at my house, but I actually had a really good reaction to it. Like when I had my 45-minute session at the VA, normally when I sit that long and I go to stand up, I can barely walk because my knees hurt so much. My knees weren't in any pain when I got up. And like I said, whether it's mental or actually worked, I don't care. It worked. The other thing too, I am on finally. I'm on some. I'm taking Zoloft now, which has actually dramatically changed everything else. I'm also on testosterone replacement therapy, which is something that's not done enough in the military, especially with all the stuff that we're doing between the mental health therapy and then the testosterone replacement therapy and the anxiety meds that I'm on. It's dramatically changed my life.
Did you ever get the SGB, the stellar ganglion block?
No, never did that. I remember that being talked about, but I never did that.
That one, so I got that one done. And they come in right here through your neck. And it's got this nice little 2-3 inch long needle. And they got an ultrasound where they're doing it on your neck so that way they can see everything. And they just go in and they just squeeze whatever it is. I can't remember.
I think Tracy remembered describing it to me, and I think I said no.
And then you feel like you've got a lump in your throat the rest of the day, and then you can't talk, and your voice just goes away, which was good for my family because they didn't have to hear me. But man, I'm telling you, when I got that done, it was like every ounce of like aggression and irritability was gone.
Really?
And there were two situations. I'll tell you the one later, but I was sitting at the dinner table and my son did something, my oldest son. And I knew he was going to be in trouble for what he did. And I looked at him, I said, son, I want to yell at you right now, but I just don't have the energy. And it was just a completely different person. But I've heard a lot of guys, they get those work wonders.
I may need to look into that then. The whole needle in the neck thing, I think it kind of scared me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of tattoos, but I still hate needles.
Oh, I'm same boat. Yeah, it's definitely worth looking into. You get a series of them. You can get up to 3. Like the first one will last, X amount of time. But then the second one's supposed to get you to like 18 months. And then the third one's supposed to really make the effects last longer.
Okay.
So
that actually sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. But what was that everything? I know I kind of jumped in there.
Treatment-wise, yeah, I think so for the most part. Because actually, once I got on the TRT, so I don't know if we want to go into this too much right now, but so I was in therapy for a year and a half, retired, and unfortunately, I couldn't see Tracy anymore after I was officially out. And she kind of knew that. She started weaning me off towards the end because she knew it was going to be over once I was officially out of the Army. So it took me a year to try and get into therapy through the VA. And once I finally had my first appointment, it was just, of course, a normal intake appointment. And set up the next appointment after that. Well, after that first appointment, like my next 2 appointments got canceled, not by me, by the VA. Still no idea why. Got set back up with a therapist. It was somebody new. Had my intake appointment with her. And then I think a month later, I had another appointment with her. And that appointment was for her to tell me that she was leaving, but I'd be assigned to somebody else, but we could have a session if she wanted to. I said, no, thanks. I'm not going to waste my time or your time. And I stopped. In the past, I would have just said, screw it, and not try to get any more help. And not that I was in such a bad place that I was desperate for therapy, but I also knew the work that I put in to get to where I was. I didn't want to lose that.
You want to keep progressing.
Yeah, and I could sense things. I knew things were starting to build up again, and so I'm trying to get therapy, and unfortunately, the VA just didn't work out for me. So I finally said, screw it. I just did a Google search. Found All-American Counseling off of Rayford Road, gave them a call, got in. Long story short, therapist there I got to finally she was awesome. She referred me to the Haymountain Institute, went and talked to them about some different things. That's where I wound up getting on the different anxiety meds. And the nice thing about the Haymountain Institute, too, the guy I talked to, he didn't try to pressure me onto anything. He went over all these different options based off my symptoms and my record and everything I've been dealing with. And if I said I didn't want to try, a certain thing, he'd move on. He wouldn't pressure me in any way, and gave me some suggestions. And once we got it dialed in, the meds have really, really helped. It's so much so that I'm not even in therapy now. My therapist and I both agreed that I didn't, because I was seeing her every 2 weeks. I'm at a place now I don't need therapy monthly or anything like that. She's still got my thing open, so I can give her a call if I need to or whatever. But I'm in a pretty decent spot right now.
What's your statement to somebody who's thinking about therapy but is on the fence because of the stigma that we put on ourselves, really?
No, 100%, really do. And like I said, I know the stigma's still there, but it's especially if you're in the military, it's not like it was. And if any commander or first sergeant is worth it at all, they're not going to give me any grief. I mean, they should be going to therapy themselves anyways. I think it should be mandatory, but that's a whole nother topic for another day. You got to go. You got to give it a shot. And the tough part is, I know I'm not going to talk politics or anything, but we already know there's a mental health issue in the whole country anyways. And there's shortages of mental health professionals in the military, outside, and all that. But you got to give it a shot. And I will just say this, if you don't click with, and I tell everybody this, if you don't click with that therapist, the first, second session, you got to move on. Find somebody else. Don't waste your time. Don't waste their time, because you're not going to click with every single one. Unfortunately, I wish I could just have Tracy as my personal therapist for the rest of my life. I might keep her on speed dial. But you got to give it a shot and just see, because you got to have it. It's great to have buddies or your wife or whatever, to have somebody to talk to, but there's a lot to be said about talking to a trained individual, that's dealt with these types of things. Because even though, like, my wife, well, for 26 years lived these things with me, she didn't know what was going on. She didn't know how to fix me. She didn't know what I needed. She tried to support as best I can. A lot of times I got mad about the support or whatever because it's not what I wanted or needed. The same thing when your wife is yelling about something sometime, you try to give her an answer. That's not what she wants. She just wants you to hear her. Yeah, it was the same thing for me. Therapy is 100% worth it if you connect with the therapist. And I know that's saying a lot, because it's got to be a decent therapist. And they're not all going to be good. But if you can get that right one, it's 100% worth it.
Agreed. You got to find the right one. You brought up your wife and the 26 years of marriage. Let's go down the road of when you had PTS before you got the treatment and the help that you needed, kind of like the effects on your family.
Because I can tell you where it really took off was a good friend of mine, Stepson Mark Stetz, was killed back in February of 2010 in Pakistan. And that was the first closest person I'd lost in the war. And I went down a deep, dark rabbit hole. I was a borderline drunk for about 6 to 8 months. I was drinking almost every night. I ballooned up to like 260, and normal for me is about 220 to 230. It was a bad time. My kids were young, getting exposed to all that, and I just I will tell you, drinking is never the answer with anything you're dealing with, especially if you're dealing with all these demons and stuff. Alcohol just makes it worse. And because I would binge, and then I'd get triggered. I'd hear a song, music would come on, it's always Godsmack or, Let the Bodies Hit the Floor, and all this stuff that we're used to, that we blared over there, especially in a PSYOP truck with the loudspeaker and stuff like that. But these songs would trigger me from just, you remember all the videos that they did when the war was first going out. I can't remember the name of the guy that did all the, the planes and the tanks, with the Die MF Die song.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the thing that did it, but music would trigger me big time. And I would just turn into a blubbering mess all the time. And I look back at all those times I'd be at parties with friends and drinking, and I turned into that blubbering mess every freaking time, because there was so much crap going on in my head that I wouldn't deal with, didn't know how to deal with, or didn't want to deal with, because I thought I was fine. Mm-hmm. And it was just making life hell for everybody.
How'd your family respond? Because and I'm asking the question from personal experience of getting the anxiety and having the triggering moments and being in a place, and I can look back and be like, my wife's a saint for all the crap she put up with.
Oh, yeah.
How do you think it affected your wife and kids?
Oh, I know it affected them dramatically. I don't know, and he may tell me otherwise. I don't know if it affected my son as much, because he was a bit younger. I know my middle child, I know it affected her a lot, seeing me with like that. I mean, seeing me passed out drunk, puking on myself on a patio, stuff like that all the time. It had a big effect on my family. And when I was drinking, for those 6 to 8 months all the time, the only thing that stopped me is my wife said, "You either stop or I'm taking the kids and I'm leaving." And I stopped drinking like I was, but then when I did drink, I still had the binging problem. Mm-hmm. That happened for a long time. And of course, I was never completely honest about drinking issues when I was in. I don't think we ever are. I mean, the whole reason I got referred to therapy is because I was sitting at home on, quote unquote, teleworking status when COVID kicked off. Came up from my PHA, which is periodic health assessment that we have to do yearly in the military. And there's this big long list of questionnaires that almost nobody is honest on. Because if you're honest, you get sent to all these different docs and, you got to do all these different appointments. You're worried about being non-deployable and all this stuff. Well, this time, because I'm sitting at the house and, basically free leave, I was finally mostly honest on it this time. And I was honest about all the anxiety and dreams and, triggers and all this stuff. And then my group doc called me to do her provider portion of it. And I won't tell you exactly what she said, but she basically says, Ryan Branford, you're broke. And I think you need to be med boarded. But the best thing about that was she referred me to mental health, and that's where I, got linked up with Tracy and really started to turn my life around.
That's awesome. Yeah, nobody's ever honest.
No, never. And if they say they are, they're lying.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to where we place that stigma on ourselves, where it's like, if I say this, like someone, like they're asking me this question for a reason.
100%.
So, the question always is, how many drinks do you have in a week?
Oh, yeah.
How many in a day?
You
how
always
many in one
put
sitting?
1 to 2.
1 to 2. And it goes up and it's like, but everybody's sitting there going like, oh, well, crap, I went out this weekend and I had 4 beers.
Yeah.
If I tell them that,
then you got a problem.
Then I got a problem. So I'm just going to say either don't drink or just 1 to 2.
Yeah.
And so you're just automatically training yourself to respond based on, and I don't know, maybe this is the anxiety and the self-criticism where it's like, this doctor is going to think this about me, so
100%.
I better lie so that way.
My default answer was 1 to 2 drinks every time I drank. That was it.
Yeah.
And like I said, everybody lies on the PHA. Everybody lies because you're so worried about, and that's the problem, is you're so worried about being looked at one way or being non-deployable or getting kicked out or whatever.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, I was over 20 years when this happened. Because if I had been at 18 years and was honest and I'm getting, put out before 20 years, I run the risk of not getting my retirement.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's a reason why people lie about this stuff.
Yeah, no, 100%. I found the way to honestly answer that 1 to 2 drinks per sitting is you just use a bigger cup.
That's a good one.
So, looking back at it and everything, what are some of like your biggest challenges, and do you think you've overcome them?
As far as just the anxiety or just in general?
In general.
Oh man, you got me put me on the spot now because I always hate talking about myself and how I overcome. That's why anytime I had to do my NCOER, I could never, which I shouldn't have been doing my own NCOER.
Yeah.
But I can never talk about myself.
Well, let's focus then on the anxiety and the PTS, because I can look back. Not to cut you off, I'll just give you more time to think. But I can think back in my life, and it's like, if I would have gotten treatment sooner, mentally I would have been better, and then I could have gone down this road.
That's deep.
And instead, I dwelled so much on like I don't want to do this one thing because I'm gonna have to put myself out there. And
yeah. That's pretty deep right there. Because I've actually never thought about it from that standpoint, that if I'd have sought treatment earlier or been honest sooner, how my life might be different. At the same time, I'm also a pretty firm believer that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Because truth be told, if I wouldn't have waited and I'd have gone to therapy earlier, I never would have gotten linked up with Tracy. And thus, I wouldn't be sitting here probably doing this podcast right now.
Well,
you know what I mean?
that's a very positive spin on it. That's,
look,
that's
see,
an easy way to not answer the question.
No, ultimately, because for me, for years, and it was always a running joke. I mean, I don't do well with things that are new. That's one of my biggest issues with the anxiety. That's why there's always arguments in the house when I don't know the answer to a wife's question. I freak out. Not because I'm mad at her asking the question, but because I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
And I don't like not knowing something. But just something simple. I could always, and you hear this from guys all the time. Anytime I went to a restaurant, I had to sit in the far back corner.
Yep.
Every time. Had to see the door, or at the very least, if I couldn't sit in the back corner, I had to face the majority of the room. So the least amount of people were sitting behind me. And I've been going on the border for almost 20 years since I stationed here because I don't like to do anything new. I like the food. The service is always great. That's where I always go. And they knew when I came in, it was the back left corner and on the border all the time. And what's crazy about it is I didn't really suffer with panic attacks for most of the last 20 years. It wasn't until I started therapy, and this is not to scare anybody off of therapy because it's still necessary. It wasn't until I actually started going through therapy and dealing with things and actually bringing stuff up from the bottom that I'd buried for so long, where I started having a problem with panic attacks. And I think because I'm at a point now where they're mostly kept in check a lot of times, but because I brought all that stuff up, I brought it all to the surface, and I dealt with it. And don't get me wrong, I'm better off now for dealing with it and now dealing with panic attacks than I was not dealing with it and not having panic attacks, even though a panic attack feels like you're dying if it's full blown. I mean, the first time I had one, I thought I was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
But, I mean, honestly, it sounds so trivial. One of the biggest accomplishments for me was sitting in the middle of a restaurant, where I can mostly do that most of the time now. I mean, it was so bad when we had a safe word. And if we're walking into a restaurant and Dad says marshmallow, don't ask questions. We're leaving.
Yeah.
Right then and there. Because I can't tell you how many times I walk in, it's a crowded restaurant, people all around, and I just got to run because I could feel the panic. I could feel it coming.
Do you think it's an overstimulation?
Partly. I know I had one at work not too long ago, a few months, it was about 3-4 months ago. Around Christmas time. We're taking a Christmas photo for service. But it was a busy day, and we were taking it out in the front of the dealership inside, and there was people everywhere. And I actually had a flashback where I was pulling security in Iraq, and everybody's around you. And I just ran, and poor lady, she didn't know. One of my coworkers, she grabbed my arm to stop me. Had no idea what was going on. And luckily, when I swung back, I didn't connect with her. But as soon as she touched me, I swung. Panic attack's not fun, man.
No.
And if anybody's going through a panic attack, don't touch them. And talk to them once they're calmed down and find out ways to what you can do for them in a panic attack. Me, you really couldn't do anything. I had to get myself out of it. Breathing, telling myself that I'm okay, that I'm safe, which sounds something for a little kid, but it works. I feel like I'm rambling now.
No, you're good, man. I got a couple questions. How do you keep them in check? You said that sometimes you're able to keep them in check. And then also, could you explain, because you said if you see somebody going through a panic attack, don't touch them, but how would they know?
See, and the only way you're going to know is ask them. Ask them after the fact. Don't ask them in the moment. At least, okay, I'll say this, at least for me, because I'm not an expert on panic attacks in any way. I'm an expert on what works for me. Definitely don't touch me if I'm going through a panic attack. Talk calmly to them, if anything. Calmly, tell them they're okay. And that's really what I do to myself, because I'll feel them coming on every now and then. Sometimes I can keep it in check just by breathing. Tracy gave me something, I'm going to mess up, but she told me basically 5 things you can see, smell, touch, something to distract your mind. Sometimes you just got to roll with it.
Yeah.
There's just no stopping it. And, it's crazy. I'll sit there and I'll tell myself, I might sound like a crazy person, but I'll sit there telling myself, you're okay. You're okay. You're just at the dealership. Nobody's coming, to get you or anything like that. You're in a safe place. And luckily, too, where I work with such good people. My boss is so amazing that they know if they see me bolt out of the dealership, just let me go. And it's funny, too. There's another guy that works there. He's a retired Marine. That's a whole nother topic for another day. But he deals with a lot of the same stuff. And one of my panic attacks one day, it was the first one he'd seen, but he knew right away what it was. And he came to me out back, and he just stayed with me until I was sorry. And this kind of stuff gets me emotional because it's nice to have people around that understand what you're going through, because it's not easy. I guess when I think back, man, it's kind of dumb thinking I didn't deserve it, because even though I wasn't kicking doors and stuff like that, and, having mortars getting walked in while you're trying to sleep is not normal. It's not an everyday occurrence. But like I said, breathe deep. Back to the panic attack. Breathing deeply. And for those listening, if you're still listening to me, I apologize for rambling. Breathing deeply, counting slowly, deep breaths, just telling yourself, okay, that's what works for me. And like I said, sometimes I can't stop it, and I just got to ride it out.
Have you tried yoga or meditation or anything?
You know, I've been trying to. My body's so broke, and I know yoga would be good for me. I don't know if I can get in any of those poses.
The only reason I ask is I've talked to a lot of people recently that are into self-guided meditation and yoga. All that kind of goes hand in hand, and they've talked a lot about the breathing aspect of it. Like, just close your eyes and, you know, the 5 things. What's the furthest thing that you can hear, and then walk it in, and just focusing on your breathing. And I mean, that's pretty much what Tracy set you up with was, you know, a self-guided type of meditation.
And I will say the breathing alone, helps dramatically. Mm-hmm. Just slow, deep breaths. Man.
I did I don't know if I told this story or not already. I did a retreat with me and my wife, and they were working on breath work and self-guided meditation to help you fall asleep. And it was really good. And the guy was telling a story, and he's like, okay, picture yourself, you know, in a room, and you're laying there in a quiet, dark room with your eyes closed, and he just starts talking. And he's like, you get into an elevator and you go down, and then you walk out this door, and you walk out into a field, and you're laying on the ground, and you feel the sun, and it starts at the tip of your toes and goes all the way up to your head. People at this point are like snoring. They've already fallen asleep. And he goes, and now you're safe. I said, who are you? I didn't say this out loud, but I was like, who are you to tell me I'm safe?
Yeah.
Why are you making me think that? Like, so I immediately forced my eyes back open. I said, nope, not today. And my anxiety peaked, and I refused to, I wasn't refusing to get back into it because I didn't think it was working. I was having a moment, and I was like, no, it doesn't feel right
totally
anymore.
get it.
Doesn't feel right anymore.
Yeah.
But I think, had I been the one to tell me that I was safe, like doing my own self-guided meditation.
I agree.
And it's like, okay, I'm doing it in a space that I know, because this was out in Colorado. So now I'm in
somebody you don't know.
Somebody I don't know in a foreign location. You're telling me I'm safe? Like, no, that's a trigger word right there. Like, but I think had I been in my house, in my bed, trying to fall asleep, listening to the sound of the fan, and just being like, it's all right, man, you're safe, I think I would have been out.
Yeah. Before I forget, too, because we're talking about the panic attacks, one thing that's helped me avoid them is avoiding things I know will trigger me. Mm-hmm. One of the worst mistakes I made was going to Costco on a Monday out in, where was it? I forget where it was. There was a lot of people, and I got set off straight into a panic attack. So my therapist, actually, the last one I had, you know, they got the early morning shopping stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, go do the early morning shopping stuff when there's not, you know, a ton of people. If you know stuff that's going to set you off, try and avoid those situations. And it's not saying not to learn to try and deal with that stuff, because I still think it's important to try and learn to deal with things that you know will trigger you. But at the same time, it's not a quick process. It's not like if crowds are your thing that sets you off, throwing yourself into a crowd once a month is probably not the right way to make it work. So I try to avoid those things.
Why do you think, because I just did a whole thing on triggers, and just mine specifically, and I was talking about, for me, it's like parking lots, large crowds in parking lots. And a heavily congested parking lot is a trigger for me because there's too much going on.
Yep.
And I was telling my wife, I was like, I don't think this is a trigger. And she's like, no, I think it is a trigger. And for me, it was, okay, here's my parking spot. I got somebody coming this way. I got this little person walking down the middle of the road. I got somebody right behind me, up this car starting to, and it's like so much. I'm just like, screw this. I'm going to go to another parking spot, or I just leave.
Yep.
What do you think? What are your thoughts when you get into the crowds? Like, why is that a trigger?
Honestly, I think it goes back to past experiences in Iraq, just being surrounded by so many people and not knowing you're constantly scanning hands, windows, roofs, doors all the time. I mean, being paranoid when you're passing a dead donkey, in the freaking street because it might be an IED.
Yeah.
To me, it just comes back to the crowds I had to deal with in Iraq, the crowd control and stuff like that, and not knowing, even though I was fortunate and I didn't have any incidents but there was so much stress level. I just think it's ingrained in me that if you're surrounded by a ton of people, you better be scanning and looking and constantly on guard. And it's just, but what's weird is I can go to a theater, be completely sold out, and I'm fine. Well, I've never quite understood that.
I was going to ask you if there's like different levels. Like if you go to Costco, that's too much, but a movie theater is okay, or...
I can't explain why I've always been able to go to a movie theater, even at the height of dealing with panic attacks. I'd be fine. The only thing I can think is because and people would be behind me because I like sitting on the middle seat, not too close, not too far, whatever. I never had to sit all the way up at the top of the row. I don't know if it's because, it's dark, and even though there's a lot of people, you're all focused on the screen. The only thing I can think is because I had hyper focus on what was going on in the screen in front of me. And then being in a big crowd, where not everybody's looking at the same thing as you are, that's where I think, I get not distracted, but where I hyper focus on what's that person doing. But I yell at my wife and daughters all the freaking time for walking through a parking lot with their phone in their face.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you have to pay attention to your surroundings all the time. You can ask them, they've heard it since they first got a cell phone. And they still don't listen to me on it. But, crowds are a big trigger for me. I mean, I went to Raleigh. This is just, it was one of my son, I forget, probably about 5-6 months ago. My son's girlfriend was up in Florida. We went to Raleigh, and I've been here since 2004. I'd never gone into the city of Raleigh, ever. And we went up there, 5-10 minutes in, full-blown panic attack. I don't know, it's just all the tall buildings, bunch of people, and I couldn't handle it. I was able to calm down, but I was crying, hyperventilating. There was nothing I could do to stop it. It was one of those ones I just had to ride out. My son, he got it, but doesn't, still doesn't quite get it, but he's compassionate about it and has empathy towards me about it and everything. So it's not like looking at me like I'm a piece of crap or anything, but they know just kind of let dad be. Wife's just standing there by me, waiting for it to ride out, but I don't do big crowds that well.
Do you ever, I experience this, so I'm going to ask you if you do too, since we have so much in common, it seems like. Yeah. Just listening more to your story.
I know,
yeah, it's like you're describing me. Stop. When you have those experiences, do you feel guilt or shame because of the impact on the family?
Yeah, I still haven't quite accepted the fact of all my little quirks, I guess you want to call them, and all this stuff that I have to deal with, even though I'm in a better place now than I was. And my wife and kids will tell you, I'm like, maybe not a full 180 degrees better, but pretty doggone close to what I used to be. Mm-hmm. But yes, I don't like them having to deal with my issues.
Yeah.
And it comes back to, like I said, I'm a firm believer. My wife can work if she wants to, but it's always been a thing for us. I didn't want her to have to work if she didn't want to. I'm the provider. I'm the protector. I'm going to take care of you guys. I'm going to take care of all your problems, help you through all your problems. You shouldn't have to deal with mine. And I know that's not the right answer because especially in a good marriage, you guys should be sharing each other's problems and helping each other deal with all this stuff. But at the same time, and yes, my wife lived it from the standpoint that she took care of everything else while I was gone. All those years I was gone, I missed basically 3 years of my kids' lives, being gone, and she took care of everything. I've always joked that, she's getting ready to leave for 10 days here soon, and I got to take care, and I don't have any young kids anymore, but I still got to take care of the dogs, the cats, the bird, and all this stuff, the house. I'm going to be a mess for the next 10 days. But she did all that. Deployment was quote unquote easy for me. because that's real stress, taking care of the kids, and which it's not true, but it's still a hard job. I'm not relax, ladies. I'm not saying it's not a hard job at home, but I never wanted them to have to, even though they did have to deal with all my crap, especially before I got help. Now that I don't, and it's not that I feel weak. Like, I've never felt weak going to therapy, and I don't even feel weak having the panic attacks, but I do feel guilty that it affects what I do with my family and stuff like that, that I can't always do the things we used to do before I dealt with all my crap,
Yeah. So for me, it's exactly that. It's, we're going to go do something. I have a panic attack or my anxiety spikes up. So now I'm irritable. I'm snapping at the kids.
Yep.
And it's like, now I'm this a-hole of a father who's yelling. I have no patience. My youngest is doing what a 2-year-old toddler should be doing.
Right.
And it's just driving me insane. And everybody else is fine. And I'm like, what is wrong with you people? Do you not see this? And they're like, it's not a big deal. No, this is a big deal. And then when I come down and I reflect on it later, it's like, God, my kids are going to need therapy because I didn't get into therapy.
Now, I can't tell you how many fights it's been caused by me by that exact reason. My wife telling me, dude, Ryan, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
I'm like, exactly like you said, yes, it is, whatever. And just going off. And then, like you said, when I calm down later, I'm like, man, I was a freaking moron for freaking out like that. Luckily, I got it. Like I said, my kids are older. Hope I didn't mess them up too bad, but, they seem we're pretty honest with unfortunately, like my daughter tells me way too many things, but we're pretty honest about stuff. We've got a good relationship. We're able to talk about these issues and everything, and they get it. And like I said, I mean, even my oldest, who lives up in Ohio, we were up there. I had a panic attack in a restaurant. Of course, a new environment. I don't do well in new environments that I'm not used to. We're at a hibachi restaurant. Excuse me. And, they're doing their whole thing while they're cooking and everything. All of a sudden, it flames up, and he throws broccoli at me in the middle of the flames. I lost it. I straight up lost it. I didn't go off on him. I came real close to yelling at him, but I had to storm out the restaurant, keep myself from freaking out. Didn't do too good of a job with that one, but didn't go into full-blown, cry fest or anything. But my daughter and her husband were like, if he would have just done that to anybody else but Dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they know, and they know I can't help it. And I know I can't help it, which is also frustrating because I can't always help it.
Right.
I can't always stop it. And I want to be able to. And you're so used to, especially 20 plus years in the military, as a senior NCO, I prided myself on being able to fix problems, take care of things, not have to anybody else have to worry about it. I always had a problem with delegating, and then now this stupid little chemical crap in my brain or whatever you want to call it, whatever the scientific terms are for it, the post-traumatic stress and all that stuff that we've gone through, you can't always control it.
Yeah. And
that's the hardest part is, like an injury, it sucks because I've got a vast injury history. Even though you can't control that, you can get better from that pretty quick. Man, 6-9 months from most surgeries and stuff like that. This crap, I mean, it sucks. There's no other way to say it. It sucks dealing with all the crap we've dealt with, However, it's important to deal with it. That's what I want y'all to get. It's important to deal with it because it's way worse if you don't.
You happy?
I'm the happiest I've been 20 plus years.
That's awesome.
20 plus years. And like I said, working in customer service, I never thought I'd be doing that. And 2, I never thought I'd be happy doing customer service. I mean, most of my customers are awesome. There's those certain ones that can just ruin my week. And I try not to take that personal. My GM tells me not to take it personal. My boss tells me not to take it personal. But I take it personal every time somebody's not happy. And I've always cared about what I do. And it's important to take care of yourself, though. Therapy's important.
Is your family happy?
I think so. I hope so. They'll tell me after they listen to this if they're happy or not. I think they are. Like I said, my wife has seen a dramatic difference in me. She says it all the time. Don't get me wrong. In the morning, I still don't like to be talked to until I've been up for about an hour. I don't know if I'll ever get over that. I got to have at least a few sips of coffee. Still got to put my dip in the morning. I know, don't dip. It's not good for you. But I think they're happy. I hope so. Sure hope so. I've never asked them. To be honest, I've never asked them.
I bet they would say that they're happy and they're proud of you for getting the help.
They have told me that. My wife, they have told me how proud of me they are for going and getting help. My son, he's not great at talking face to face, but he's texting me stuff. My daughter says stuff. My wife says stuff. And it's weird. I appreciate them telling me they're proud of me. And still in the back of my mind, I'm like, but you still shouldn't have to be dealing with this. You know what I mean? So
you brought it up. You said something earlier that triggered a thought that I had, and you're kind of bringing it up again. I think a lot of men put themselves up on this pedestal of who they have to be for their family.
100%.
And I think we fault ourselves. We will drive ourselves into the ground trying to be the person that we think we're supposed to be for our family. And then when we actually are who we need our wife and kids to be, and they give us that, hey, thank you for doing this. Hey, I appreciate it. And you're setting a good example. It's like you don't want to hear that because it's like you've put yourself up on this pedestal. I think other people put us on that pedestal as well of like, I expect you to do this or be this certain way. But it's like you said it and I've said the same thing, but like I should be the one providing for my family. I should be the one that's doing this. I should be the one being this type of husband. And it's like, but you did by getting help and actually going through the process. Like you set a standard that your wife and kids probably didn't even know that they needed. They needed you to get the help for them as well, not just you.
See, you just gave me goosebumps actually, because that's one thing I have thought about is the fact that I was willing to get help finally, and I've gone through this process for the last few years. I hope my kids see that it's okay to get help. It's not always easy to deal with everything. You still got to deal with things. You can't just ignore them. That's the biggest thing I got to stress. You can't ignore all the crap you've done. Can't. It'll kill you. Yeah. And unfortunately, it kills a lot of service members, because they're not getting help. And it's so important to deal with this stuff. And like I said, I'll probably never be okay with my family saying they're proud of me for getting help, because in my mind, it's what I should do anyways. I don't like, when I was in, I didn't like getting thanked for doing what was my job. It's my job to take care of my soldiers. It's my job to make sure the mission is accomplished. And I don't know, I guess it's one of my own flaws, because I'm also the guy that will thank my soldiers for getting the job done, even though, quote unquote, it's their job to do it. So, yeah, it's one of those things, good for you, not for me or whatever.
Yeah.
That's my own flaw to deal with. I don't know. I just know this, man. I'm in a lot better place than I was 3-4 years ago.
That's awesome. Well, man, I think we'll wrap it up here.
Cool.
You got anything else you want to throw out there?
Man, you know what's going to happen. As soon as I get on the bike and leave, I'll be like, man, I should have said that. Oh, I should have said that. So if you ever want me back on, man, let me know.
Absolutely.
Because this is pretty cool.
All right, man.
It's kind of cathartic.
It very much is.
Yeah.
So, all right, dude.
Appreciate it.